Good evening, Bulls fans. I'm Matt Gritzmacher. Uh, in times past, I used to say I'm joined, as always, by John McWhinney on the Olympic Rundown. In times past, we also did it on Sunday nights, usually a little earlier in the evening. The Olympic Rundown is changing. We've been off for a couple weeks. That's my fault. I got a bit sick. I had to do a bit of traveling. John's been busy. I'm kind of tired of doing videos where you watch these videos and just stare at our talking heads for a bit. So we're going to move the Olympic Rundown to an audio format, and I'm probably going to opt to do more podcasts. We're going for podcast format instead of a video. I'm going to opt to do more per week, perhaps a little shorter at a time. See where that goes with us. At the same time, it's useful to get up and do these videos. It's one of the easier ways for me to put audio together and limit the low load on me to do audio editing after the fact. In post-production, I guess we could call it. So I'm still going to do a video every Sunday night or so. We'll see how that goes, and I won't really publish this on the blog, but I'll put it up on Twitter, and maybe some of you will see it, and we'll say what we have to say. But stay tuned for some podcast news. We'll be integrating Bowls and Beers and football and basketball talk into the podcast channel as well. We think that as a group of guys, we can get a broader reach if we're not asking people to watch videos, but if we can start pushing podcasts and audio to iTunes and those apps and things, we think that people are more likely to listen. And really all we want to do is talk sports. So we're going to keep doing that no matter what. So I apologize for being gone for 3 weeks. A lot happened. I've lost John, kind of have him on an inconsistent basis for the next couple of weeks, I think. Hopefully we'll certainly get him on to talk wrestling when the time comes. In terms of things that happened for UB, I'm kind of wishing that we went back to September, because September was more fun when it comes to Olympic sports. Women's soccer was rolling and looked like a team that could contend for a MAC championship. Men's soccer was still undefeated. Volleyball's better in October than it was in September, but it's been kind of the weeks that have taken off here have been coincided with some rougher weeks in soccer. That said, this past weekend was probably some of women's soccer's best of the season, if you ask me. We did have 2 draws, both of them at home, which is not what you'd like to see, especially from a program that's only lost once at home in the last 3 years. But to get draws in the closing of the season is perfectly fine with me. I think we all kind of felt at the beginning of the season that this was a team that was going to struggle to score goals, especially if teams bottled up Carissima Catrona. They did struggle, they have struggled, but they're still getting results. They're in good shape to make the MAC tournament. They're sitting in 7th. 8 teams make it with 1 match left to play. If they beat Akron with a win and Eastern Michigan loses to Central, which is very possible, then UB will jump up to 6th, which is about where I predicted them at the beginning of the season. If they get a result against Akron, they'll fend off anything that Bowling Green can do to try to jump them. Bowling Green has the capability to jump 2 teams and knock one of them out from 9th. The Falcons could jump up, and like the Bulls, the Falcons are home in their last meet of the year. But looking back at this weekend behind us, UB got 2 draws, both at home, one against Eastern Michigan, one against Central Michigan. The Eastern Michigan match went pretty similar to how a lot of matches have gone this year for the Bulls. They gave up a goal in the first 10 minutes of the game and then had to fight back. Moira Petrie got the goal, the equalizer, 20 minutes in. Really a beautiful shot, one of the better shots of the season. From 25 yards out, straight on, she put one off the crossbar, and it rattled in. And UB, in a real mucky, wet, rainy day, didn't look all that good through the second half and the 2 overtimes, but they held on for the result. Kept themselves from losing at home for only the second time in 3 years. I really think UB is a much better team than Eastern Michigan. Weather effects like the driving rainstorm that was going through Western New York on Thursday night, kind of have a way of evening games out. The Bulls were outshot 16-10 by the Eagles, but Laura Dougal made 7 saves. I'm pretty sure that Eastern Michigan's goal came on their second shot of the game. Third shot of the game. But it's a draw. It's a result. UB had the benefit of the schedule, finishing with 3 I was hoping that those matches would propel them into a nice run of momentum coming into the tournament, that they make the postseason. And while I was hoping for multiple wins, they did get this draw from Eastern Michigan. On Sunday, the draw against Central Michigan was much more of a pleasant surprise. Central Michigan comes into the final stretch of the season as one of the top teams in the MAC. I'd put them at number 3 behind Kent State and Ball State, and we'll see how they shake out. They'll certainly have a home quarterfinal game. They boast the conference's leading scorer in Lexi Pelifas, who came into the weekend with 15 goals, really threatening the MAC record of 19 goals on the season. And UB managed to hold her scoreless. They managed to really shut down the Central Michigan offense. Carissa Catrona scored off a long, beautiful through pass from Andrea Kniper just 10 minutes after halftime. This is on Sunday afternoon. After UB really controlled the first half, too, of this game. I think UB outshot Central Michigan 8-3 in the first half. They had outshot up until Catrona's goal. They had the 10-4 shots. And they got this lead, and they held it. This is on senior day. So while they do have a home game against Akron, that was senior day for Angel Hart, Dana Little, Moira Petrie. No, Petrie's a junior, excuse me. Ashley Evans, Andrea Kniper, and Selena Carrero. UB got the lead, probably their best 89 minutes of the year against a really quality opponent in Central Michigan. The Chippewas, I think, are going to be a real threat in the MAC tournament. And UB was able to go with them. This was the team that we saw in September. They were able to maintain possession. They were on the front foot. Through 90 minutes, UB had 7 corner kicks and Central Michigan at 0. It was really, really all UB. I said 89 minutes a couple seconds ago, and that's because, as you know, they did finish with a draw here. Central Michigan's equalizer came with 15 seconds left to play. A little bit of a heartbreaker for the Bulls on senior day, but they did bottle up Pelifas, and they still came out of it with a draw. They've got themselves in position to control their own destiny for the MAC tournament against Akron this coming Thursday. In this game, I mentioned Carissa Catrona, her 10th goal of the season. She's just the second Bull since 2003 to score 10 goals on the women's side. That's after Katie Roberts scored 12, of course, in the championship season in 2014. But before that, the last one to score double digits was Emily Russell in 2003. That's a long time. That's a lot of teams. It's a lot of players. And Catrona is only a sophomore. So there's room for her to really climb up the charts and keep going. And this one, she's having a heck of a season. She's got at least 2 games left to add to her total. So 2 ties for women's soccer this week. I will have much more to say later this week. Once we see this match against Akron, I'll break that down Thursday night, and I'll do something of a MAC tournament preview that will be posted in writing on hustlebelt.com, a sister site to UB Bull Run. And also I'll do an audio podcast version of a tournament preview as well for women's soccer. Men's soccer, switching gears. When this becomes an audio podcast, I'm going to need music, and I don't have any yet. So it's going to be pretty raw and rusty for a while. Hopefully I can get other Bull Run editors to chime in with things, and I can find a way to mix it up. Because as I said, all I want to do is talk sports. Men's soccer, we got into the point in the season where there's only 6 teams in the MAC. You play one of them each weekend. And Stu Riddle, for the most part, doesn't play midweek games during MAC season. He wants to have the team focused on MAC matches, which I approve of. The men were coming off a really strong 2-1 win at West Virginia last week that put them in good shape. 1-1 in early MAC play, with both of those coming on the road, and they were coming home for Western Michigan. Western Michigan is a very good team. They scare me. They outplayed Buffalo twice last year, but some late heroics in the MAC semifinal from Daniel Cramarosa and Russell Cicerone put them through to the MAC final. But the Broncos have, who I still think is the best goalie in the conference, in Drew Shepard, even though Joe Kuda and Ben Lunt of Akron both have, pedigrees and the results to prove it too. And the Broncos scare me. I think they're a very good team. And UB was really on the back foot through this whole game Friday night against Western Michigan. Any sort of win, any points that you gain on the road from a strong win at West Virginia doesn't mean much if you can't keep results and maintain your home turf. And UB looked like they were really in rough shape. going late, but before Central Michigan equalized late on Sunday afternoon, UB did it on the men's side Friday night. Russell Cicerone does what he does he's got 3 career goals now against Western Michigan, and all 3 of them have come in the 89th minute or later. Today, or this weekend, it was in the 90th minute. He jumped up over the crowd and headed in across from Alec Fisher to equalize the game, and then there was nothing doing in either of the overtimes, and UB gets the draw. Pretty solid result for Western Michigan as well, with regards to MAC tournament seeding. The draw for UB gives them 4 points with 2 games to play. They're home against Northern Illinois tonight or this weekend, and then they'll travel to Bowling Green. I think if they get a win versus Northern Illinois, they're absolutely fine for the MAC tournament, which will be nice. Cicerone's up to 12 goals on the season. He's now matched last year's production, 12 goals and 8 assists, and he's still got at least 2, hopefully 3 games, hopefully 4 games left to go and pile up stats in his career. This one is UB's, I feel like a draw is deserved, but UB's probably a little lucky to have it. They relied pretty big on some huge saves from Joe Kuda early in the game. First 15 minutes, he made 3 real big stops. Like I said, Western Michigan was absolutely on the front foot. It didn't really feel like UB had anything going until the last couple minutes, but Fisher put a good ball. Cicerone put it in the net. That goal is especially meaningful because Fisher and Cicerone, along with Steven Stryker, were both, of course, recruited by Stu Riddle to Western Michigan and then followed Riddle to Buffalo when Danny White hired him away from the MAC rival, which is great to see. As I mentioned, men's soccer is against Northern Illinois this coming Friday. Northern Illinois shouldn't scare you because in non-conference play, they were the worst team in the MAC without really any question in non-conference play. And I was happy to write them off until in conference play they beat they tied Western Michigan, and then I think that's all I see is that they tied Western Michigan just like Buffalo did. So that's impressive. They did lose by 7 to Akron, which is much less impressive. But NIU could be an interesting opponent for the Bulls. As I said, I think UB gets the win, and I think it's going to be a big night on senior night for Russell Cicerone. And if they get the win, they're good. They're clear through to the MAC tournament. Totally lost my train of thought there. That'll be Friday night. I'll have something of a preview up in writing on the site later this week. One sport and 2 teams that we haven't talked about as much this year, in part because they only really ramped up as I fell off with the Olympic rundown, is men's and women's tennis. I spend a lot more time on them in the spring when their championships are conducted, but they do play with something more of an eye towards individual play in the fall. And both of them went to their ITA regionals this past weekend. It's an individual tournament for teams, and it's based in the regionals, and there's a national tournament as well. We've never advanced any of that. But it's something of a nice look to see how we shake up against the other teams from the Northeast that will play quite a bit of in the spring in non-conference play. And I will say on the men's side, UB had 6 student athletes representing Buffalo at the ITA regionals. The last couple of years, we've never had more than 3. So this is really encouraging, especially since Nails Nichols' team is so freshman heavy this year. There's a lot of newcomers. We've had 3 years in a row of graduating, tons and tons of senior experience, top of the MAC talent experience. And now we've got a freshman class that came with a lot of pomp. We were told to be excited about this freshman class. It's hard to get a beat on tennis recruiting, but people were very excited about this class and turned around and sent six guys to ITA regionals. A couple years ago, we made a big hullabaloo because Pablo Alvarez made it to the round of 16 at the ITAs. That was a big deal. He was the first one to ever do it. Damian David had almost made it, and he had a chance at being to join Pablo Alvarez, the first time it had ever been done. This year, we got that match from a freshman in Hao Shang Koi, Malaysian freshman on UB. If you had told me that one guy from the Bulls would have made it to round 16, I never would have thought it would be him. Not because I actually know anything about him, but really exciting, solid performance from him. That's the type of thing that doesn't happen very often. It only happened for the first time 2 years ago. Coy joined up with junior Ethan Natolo, who has been around, obviously, is something of the old hand on the team. It's really Ethan Natolo. Oh, he's a sophomore. Excuse me. He's a sophomore. It's Ethan Natolo and senior Tony Miller, and that's really what UB's got for upper class leadership and people who've been around the program. But Coy and Natolo made it to the doubles round of 16 as well. On the women's side, Tanya Stoyanovska and Margarita Kotak also made the round of 16 on the doubles side. I'm a little bit less familiar as to the rarity of that on the women's side. I'm relatively certain that nobody's ever made it in singles, but I think we had a pairing make it in doubles last year. I just didn't want to look it up in time for this podcast. But men's and women's tennis, way to go in that regard. The men do have one more weekend. Western Michigan hosts a tournament now in late October every year where they invite all the MAC teams. 2 years in a row, UB has unquestionably been the most successful team at this tournament. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens for a third year. It hasn't necessarily been predictive of MAC success, certainly not MAC regular season success the last few years. But it'll be fun to see anyway. I'm interested to see how teams in the MAC like Northern Illinois have reloaded. I'm interested to see how Western Michigan is doing. They've had a lot of strong talent like Buffalo last few years. And I'm interested just to see Binghamton lose, because don't know if you've noticed this over the years of the Olympic rundown, but I really dislike Binghamton, and I hate that they're in the MAC now for tennis. On the women's side, they are indeed done for the fall. They'll pick up in February. They'll start off with a match against Youngstown State. Another sport that I should have led with them, because we always lead with sports that start their season off. Maybe I will lead with them. We always start with sports that lead their season off, and so we're leading on the podcast when I get to editing time with swimming and diving, who opened their season. They didn't host teams from Bonaventure and Niagara cannon fodder at the beginning of October like they have the last few years. They waited until their annual meet against Cornell, kind of here in the middle of October. This meet does go unscored because Cornell and Ivy League rules can't have official competitions such and such early in their season. So it's officially an unscored meet, officially a scrimmage. But I will say that against a team that has been an appropriate amount of challenge for UB, I'd say has had the better of the bowls, certainly 2 years ago. And I think anecdotally last year it was pretty even. UB showed up really strongly against Cornell. They weren't quite running all their best lineups, but the women claimed first place in 12 of 16 events and second place in 9 of 16, while the men claimed first place in 15 of 16 events. That feels wrong. I wrote the number 15 down. I'm not certain that it's right. But they claimed second place in 9. That feels more right. I could look this up quickly. You know what? Maybe the men did claim first place in 15 of 16 events. That's pretty impressive, especially since Cornell is generally a strongish program when it comes to swimming and diving. Yeah, I think Cornell only won on the men's side in the final relay, final event of the day by about a quarter of a second of the 200-yard freestyle. So that's really impressive for the men. I want to highlight some individuals as best I can. In the future, we'll do more in the way of write-ups for swimming and diving. It's a little tough to talk swimming and diving just because it's kind of raw data and there's not much else. Big name on the women's side, junior sprinter Megan Burns. She doesn't lose in the 50 and 100 free. And in this meet against Cornell, she won both, as you'd expect. But she won the 50-yard freestyle, by 1.3 seconds, which is a very long time in any swimming race, let alone a race that's only 23 seconds long. And in the 100-meter freestyle, she won by 2.8 seconds. She went to nationals last year for both events. It would be very nice to see her at nationals again for both events this year. It's hard to see her not. She's been very consistent and very fast for UB. UB's sprinting situation in general should very much excite you. Penn State transfer Sarah Baxter was part of the opening 200-yard medley relay that won by nearly 3/4 of a second. She won the 200-yard freestyle by 2 full seconds. She won the 100-yard butterfly by not very much time at all. And then she was part of the 200-yard freestyle relay that won by a second and a half. Baxter, Eve Costin, Megan Burns, Maddie Jakumski, these are all names that you should get to know when it comes to UB's short speed sprinting on the women's side. They've been dominant in freestyle events in the MAC over the last 3-4 years, and they will continue to be dominant. It's just a question of how much depth they can pile up on the other side. But there's a new generation of sprinters at UB, and they're a lot of fun to watch. One new name that I also really want to highlight is Andrea Ernst, freshman out of Orchard Park, West New York product. She's joining this group of sprinters, and she's going to be very, very important, very key for the Bulls. She led off the butterfly of the second 200-yard relay for UB. That group came in second place. She also came in fourth in the 50-yard freestyle, again, an event totally dominated by Burns. She was UB's number 3 swimmer there behind Burns and Costin. She came in second in the 100-yard fly behind Baxter, and she was a full half second against the number 3 swimmer, who was also from UB. And then she was the third leg in the victorious 200 free relay. So she's a freshman who's stepping right in. She's going to play a huge role in those sprints. She's a capable butterfly swimmer as well. Last year's freshman, real standout freshman Julia Box did not swim. She is still on the roster, so that's good to see. We'll figure out what's going on with her in time. On the distance side, big name I want to watch out for is Hannah Miller. Of course, UB's graduated Spencer Rodriguez and Jess Powers in consecutive years. Miller seems to be the heir apparent to those two, and Brittany Curris before them when it comes to distance swimming, but she's also dabbling in the individual medley a bit. She came in second in the 400-yard IM. She won the 500-yard freestyle without much issue at all. And then she was part of a 200-yard freestyle relay, along with Carrie Giovanniello, Brittany Walters, and Circe Paulo Benson, which a group that I'd like to see get as much swimming in as they can. Brittany Walters can be a versatile swimmer. Carrie Giovanniello can do sprints, can do distance. Paulo Benson is going to be important depth in those non-freestyle strokes that I'd like to see, that UB really needs to move up. I'm pretty sure the women were selected in the preseason poll to finish 4th at the MAC championships. That feels about right based on years past, but I also think that there's room for UB to take 2nd or 3rd, especially if the diving takes another step forward as it did last year. Diving in this meet, UB absolutely dominated Cornell. Abby Croce, Valerie Lorte, Mackenzie Moss on the women's side took the 1 meter diving, and the 3 meter diving, they were joined. It was Olivia Goslin, who I believe is a freshman, joined Moss and Lorte. And then on the men's side, Nick Rodriguez, Christian Santos, Troy Birdsall, 1, 2, 3 in the 1 meter. And then in the 3 meter, Rodriguez, Santos, Birdsall. Get used to that. They took a big step forward. They'll take a big step forward again this year, and that could really help the Bulls out, especially for the men who were picked 2nd in the MAC to finish in the preseason poll. I honestly haven't looked at the poll. It's been a long weekend, but I would bet that it's behind Missouri State. It could be behind Eastern Michigan. Those 2 programs were at the top of the table last year. If you know anything about the men, you know that Mason Miller was a huge breakout as a freshman last year. He was a high school standout in Ohio. He swam in 4 events this weekend as well. He was the 3rd leg in the 200-yard medley relay, opening the meet. That was part of a group that won by a second and a half, along with Ryan Gordon, who's an intriguing name. He's a transfer in from Indiana. Garrett Clark and Eric Jensen. He won the 50-yard freestyle. He's going to do a lot of winning there. He won the 100-yard butterfly by almost 2 full seconds. He's going to do a lot of winning there. And he was on UB's top 200-yard freestyle relay that came in 2nd. He was the closing leg there on the 50 freestyle, and he swam the fastest 50 free by by a good margin there, the fastest anchor leg there. So Miller is a big name to know. 100-yard freestyle relay, I'm a bit intrigued to see who swims the opening for that. At this meet, it was Andrew Cole Goings, followed by Aaron Durrance, Eric Jensen, and Mason Miller. I think Durrance, Jensen, and Miller are very clearly three guys who belong on that group. I think Cole Goings is not necessarily the obvious choice there. We'll see. There's a lot going on. UB lost Antonio Lanzi to graduation. Last year, they lost Oliver Petrucci to transfer to Indiana. So we'll see kind of where the sprinting depth is for UB. We'll see in time kind of who comes forward. Cole Goins may be the best guy to lead off. He may be among UB's 4 best sprinters in this particular meet, which is early in the year. I'll confess or allow. UB was in a bit of a hole after the first leg. Cornell's top 2 relays swam 21:20 and 21:82 in that opening leg, where Cole Goins swam 22:07. And all of UB's 3 closing legs were below 21:12. So I'll be interested to see kind of how that shakes out. UB has lost a bit of sprinting depth on the men's side in the last few years. One freshman name who I do want to highlight, and there's a few new names, is Joey Puglisi. Comes UB out of Michigan. He's going to be valuable in a few different spots. He opened up a relay group in the 200-yard medley relay that was ultimately disqualified. He came in second in the 100-yard backstroke. He's going to be a valuable backstroker for UB. Won the 200-yard backstroke, and then he swam the 200-yard individual medley. Came in 6th there. That's not necessarily something to write home about, but he's a freshman who's going to add to UB's depth, especially in the backstroke. It's going to be fun to watch. He was one of the early signees from last year's recruiting period. And, he's a freshman whose name you should know. That's what I have to say about that. That leaves us for this weekend with men's soccer. No, I talked about men's soccer. It leaves us with volleyball. It's going to be nice to be able to edit this stuff after the fact. Leaves us with volleyball, who I would contend had the best weekend of the season for them. They, in the Friday match against Central Michigan, they fell down in the first set, won the next 2 sets, had a chance to close the match out. Wasn't able to do it. Lost the 5th set 15-13. But put up ridiculous offensive numbers in this set. Stats that UB hasn't seen in 10, 12 years. Freshman setter Scout McLaren, who is proving to be capable of anything on the court. She's a program changer, I think. Hopefully she sticks around. Had 64 assists, which is not a UB record, but is a UB high since volleyball moved from a 30-point set format to a 25-point set format. It's a high for the first time since 2005, I think, November 2005. Behind her 64 assists, middle blockers Cassie Shadow and Megan Warnett each top 20 kills. It's the first time that 2 bowls have had 20 kills since November of 2006, again, when it took 30 points to win a set. Really a great performance by the Bulls in this one. They hit 270 for the match, which well above their season average. We've seen a few matches here and there where they've strung strong sets together. And this one, they had a great first 3 sets, were a bit unlucky to lose the first. Were absolutely dominant in the second and third sets. Lost a close one that was really poor volleyball on both sides in the fourth, and then lost the 5th. And kind of came out with a loss they didn't deserve. They outplayed Central Michigan for much of this one. Like I said, some big offensive numbers. Cassie Shadow and Megan Warnett, 21 and 20 kills. Scout McLaren, 64 assists. Fortunately, they didn't slow down at all. For Saturday's match against Eastern Michigan, they did get a win in that one. Also went 5 sets. Also came down to a 15-13 final set. In this one, UB and Eastern Michigan traded off wins. UB was down in the first set and then lost the third set after winning the second, and had to win both the fourth and the fifth to take the match. 3 of these sets were decided by 2 points, and then another was decided by a 4th point. Another really strong showing from the Bulls. They hit 238 in this one. I think 5 of UB's, actually, let me just pull it up. I think 5 of UB's top 6 hitting percentage matches of the season have come in the last few. Yeah, so UB didn't hit over 200 in a match until their first win of the season at Bucknell. And since then, they've hit over 200 in 7 of 10 matches. So they really turned a corner there in their final out-of-conference season. We've seen a couple times in MAC play where they've played good volleyball for them against just some good teams. A 3-1 loss to Western Michigan, 3-0 loss to Bowling Green, 3-0 loss to Ball State. Even the 3-0 loss to Ohio in the first weekend. His team's found some improvement, which is encouraging because the losing is getting old. And I hope that the freshmen that are on this team stick around so that the program starts to build and we don't have to go through the same thing this year. In this victorious match against Eastern Michigan, McLaren followed up 64 assists on Friday with 53 more on Saturday. Just very big numbers from McLaren. A little bit more balance in this one. Shadow and Wernette had 15 and 13 kills, but Felicia Watkins bounced back after a really tough Friday and had 12 kills on 34 swings, which is more in line with what you'd hope to see from a high productive outside hitter in this one. And those 3 combined for that amounts to 40 of UB's 63 kills. Rachel Sanks and Amber Hatchett both had 9 more. Just a good all-around match from the Bulls, except for serve receive, where they had 9 reception errors. That just seems to be an issue. Right now, it's not making a huge difference between a bad team and a team that maybe can win one here or there. Someday it will make the difference between a bad team and an okay team, or an okay team and a good team. I find it hard to get too worked up about that right now. The volleyball schedule is quite long. They play 16 MAC matches. They go longer than even men's soccer. They still have regular season matches until Veterans Day weekend, and then the conference tournament is that weekend of the 17th through the 20th. Should the Bulls make it, which I find it highly unlikely that they will, especially given that they're just about done playing the West Division now. And Ohio, Kent State, Miami are all pretty solid. Even Bowling Green, pretty solid teams from the East Division that they'll have to face again. But probably one of UB's strongest weekends of the year. I'd argue certainly their strongest weekend of MAC play. Very nearly came away with 2 wins. Might be playing spoiler for Central and Eastern Michigan, who both came into the weekend with 2 wins within shouting distance of MAC tournament spots. But Central's loss to UB is definitely a killer. Or excuse me, Eastern's loss to UB, and Central maybe looks like a team that won't be able to crawl up into the tournament this year, which is nice to see. Otherwise, for Olympic Rundown, cross-country MAC championships are this weekend. I will have something in the way of a preview. If you're watching this live, which I don't think you are, thanks for watching. I will, like I said, be bundling this up into audio, and we're going to fine-tune this and start to make Bull Run's contributions to the podcast world more of an audio than video thing. It's a little bit easier to get on the go and to have more frequently. Hopefully next week I will be joined by someone. Might be Robbie, might be John. Maybe it'll be Tim. That would be great. Talking Olympic sports, we'll know where UB stands with the MAC tournament in women's soccer. Actually, by that point, a postseason game will already be under the belt, so we'll know if UB's still alive or if they're out, which either way, we'll have something to talk about. We'll know where men's soccer stands. We should have a pretty good idea of whether they're in or whether they need a lot of help before they go on the road for the season finale. We'll have another weekend of volleyball to talk about. We'll have MAC championships from cross-country to talk about. We will be able to talk men's tennis in Western Michigan, and I think we won't have any swimming to talk about. Oh, we will. Swimming will be at Pittsburgh. So we're going to have a pretty busy week again next week, especially, or I should say, even considering that I was catching up for 3 weeks worth of chatter tonight. So I look forward to this making it into the podcast world. We'll publicize that as much as we can when it's ready. If anyone wants to join, anyone wants to shoot in some comments or wants to find a way to contribute to the podcast, so it's not just me droning on. That would be great. I'm sure I'd become more popular if we did that. That said, it's Monday night. Bulls are next in action. Oh, there might be someone Tuesday. I'm rambling at this point. Nope, no one Tuesday. Bulls are next in action Thursday. Women's soccer hosting Akron, last game of the season at noon. We'll have that on Bull Run. For now, have a wonderful night. If you're listening to this later, we'll see you Tuesday. Women's soccer. Have a good one.